Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's meeting for the Contra Costa Transportation Authority, the Citizens Advisory Commission, on Wednesday, January 23rd. Just a reminder for everyone to please place their cell phones on vibrate or turn them off. And also a reminder for our Citizen Advisory Board members to please sign in. And if anyone needs a validation for parking, to please see us at the end of the meeting. On the agenda this evening, I'd like to ask if there is anyone in the audience for public comment. No, seeing that there isn't any, we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, which is our attendance log. Please check that to make sure that that's accurate. Any comments, any changes? No, okay. And also please check the meeting calendar. Comments? No? Oh, great. Next on the agenda, we have a major discussion item. Just to let you know that we do not have a quorum. We have 7. We need 2 more for a quorum. We are going to go ahead and review the San Ramon's Growth Management Program compliance checklist, and we will then make a decision on this and move it forward to the Board of Supervisors regardless. So we do have the representatives for San Ramon here this evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Vega and members of the Citizen Advisory Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening. My name is Lisa Babadia, and I'm the Transportation Division Manager with the City of San Ramon. I have 2 colleagues here with me this evening. We're thrilled to be here. Ryan Driscoll is an Associate Planner. He's here to my right. And then Lauren Barr is our Division Manager within our Planning Division. He is also here this evening. So tonight we're presenting to you the city's annual compliance checklist, and I'm sure you have the checklist in your packet. It's a very lengthy document, and I just wanted to highlight a number of items, and then we're here to answer any questions that you may have. So there's a couple things I wanted to call to your attention. So the City of San Ramon, as part of our regional transportation planning efforts, we have the luxury, if you will, of being in 2 regional transportation planning committees because of our location in the San Ramon Valley and the Tri-Valley. So we are members of the Southwest Area Transportation Committee, or SWAT, and then we're also members of the Tri-Valley Transportation Council. And the Tri-Valley Transportation Council represents the City of San Ramon, the town of Danville, and then our neighbors to the south, Dublin, Pleasanton, Livermore, and the unincorporated areas of Contra Costa and Alameda County. One of the requirements of the Growth Management Program is that we participate in regional transportation planning efforts. And so we do that through both SWAT, or the Southwest Area Transportation Committee, which most of these cities in the SWAT region are, they're here in Contra Costa County. The city, the town of Danville, Lafayette, Moraga, Orinda, and then the unincorporated area of Contra Costa. So we participate in both of those regional committees. We have elected representatives from our council who represent the city on those committees, as well as staff. San Ramon also provides administrative staff support to SWAT. So we are the SWAT administrator on behalf of all of the SWAT cities. We also collect, one of the requirements in the growth management program is to have a traffic mitigation fee program. So San Ramon collects 4 different traffic mitigation fees. We have a city traffic impact fee, or what we call a TIF, And then we have the Tri-Valley Transportation Development Fund. So all of the cities in the Tri-Valley collect the same fund for land use, whether it's a single-family housing unit, multifamily housing, or retail or industrial site. We all collect the same fee throughout the Tri-Valley. And then we also have, as part of a settlement agreement between the city, Contra Costa County, and the town of Danville, we participate in a regional fee program called the Southern Contra Costa Regional Fee and then the Southern Contra Costa Subregional Fee. So Contra Costa County, the town of Danville, and the city of San Ramon all collect that same fee on housing developments. And so on average, we collect for a single family unit, on average, we collect about $12,000 per single family unit. And then those fees are dispersed to various projects in the Tri-Valley or within the San Ramon Valley. We also participate. We are a member as part of the Transportation Demand Management Program that the Transportation Authority oversees. We are a member of the 511 Contra Costa team. There's a member of the San Ramon staff who provides TDM support services to all of the SWAT cities within Contra Costa or within the 501 program. And so with that, we promote TDM alternatives to employers throughout the SWAT region and then throughout the San Ramon Valley. And the city of San Ramon, as you may know, we're home to a regional employment center, the Bishop Ranch Business Park. So we have on average about 25,000 commuters that commute to and from the city on a daily basis. So we really rely heavily on our transportation demand management program and the commuter incentives that are available to commuters coming into the city and then also to residents of Contra Costa County. And so those are some of the regional things that we participate in, and some of them are mandatory requirements for our compliance checklist. But then at the local level, we are required to do traffic studies, and during the time that this checklist, that we completed for this checklist, we did one traffic study for a child care center. If you have any questions about that, Ryan Driscoll is here. He can provide you with information on that traffic study. We also have within the city of San Ramon 2 transportation committees. We have a transportation advisory committee. It's just like this committee. It's made up of citizens of the city of San Ramon. There are 7 of them. They are appointed by the city council. They meet monthly, and they really address regional transportation issues, but then they also have a very strong focus and emphasis on local residential traffic calming. So that committee meets once a month. We also have a citywide transportation demand management advisory committee, and that committee comprises of members of the business community. There are 5 committee members. Again, they're all appointed by the San Ramon City Council, but they're not residents of the city. They need to be a member of the business community, and they meet quarterly, and they work with our staff to develop transportation demand management programs for the employers within the city of San Ramon. So a couple of other things that we did over the last 2 years. We completed a mitigated negative declaration. That's a environmental document for the Iron Horse Trail overcrossing. The city is moving forward with constructing a bicycle pedestrian overcrossing along the Iron Horse Regional Trail at Bollinger Canyon Road. In November of 2017, our city council certified the environmental document for that project. We also were very proud. We recently we started this endeavor in 2015, and it was adopted last year. It's the city's very first citywide bicycle master plan. We received some grant funding from various sources, and we developed a committee of about 15 members of the community, and that committee worked with city staff and bicycle advocates in the city to develop our first citywide bicycle master plan. A lot of cities in this county have bicycle master plans. It was our very first. So we took, some really good points from a lot of cities, including the city of Lafayette, Walnut Creek, and Brentwood. We took some of the things that were working really well with those cities and implemented those strategies into our bike master plan. And so we're proud to say that we've installed some of our first green bike infrastructure. We have green bike lanes and bike boxes that we've installed throughout the city. And then we did a very intensive educational campaign educating our residents on what are green or bike boxes, green bike lanes, and conflict zones, et cetera. And then just finally, to wrap it up, we have our Capital Improvement Program, or CIP. Information on our CIP program is included in your packet this evening. And then the last thing I just want to touch on is we, in addition to doing traffic safety educational programs, we have a valley-wide traffic safety program where we actually work with our local school district, the town of Danville, and the county to implement traffic safety programs for children at elementary, middle, and high schools. So not only do we work with our local citizens to educate the public about traffic safety, good traffic safety standards, we also work with our schools to make sure kids are educated on the proper ways to get to and from school, proper ways to ride their bicycle, etc. So that just gives you a summary of some of the items that you'll find in our biannual compliance checklist. And I want to thank you again for your time this evening. And Ryan and I are here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would like to open this to our board members, what questions you may have.
My name is Ken Strongman from Walnut Creek, and I'm excited about the crossings of the Iron Horse Trail. And you said you negative declaration for the Bollinger Canyon crossing. What about the Crow Canyon crossing?
I'm sorry, it's for both crossings. We did the environmental document for both crossings, but we're moving forward with final design for the Bollinger Canyon location.
And when do you hope to break ground?
That's a very good question. Our council is asking us that quite often, probably anywhere between 18 to 24 months.
Thank you. Other members? Mark.
Lisa, just out of curiosity, what percentage of the Doherty Valley master plan is now complete?
Good question. I would say it's probably close to 90%.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Peter. Bruce, excuse me.
I'm sorry, I thought I did my homework, but obviously I'm confused now. You're part of the Tri-Valley Transportation Council. The second group you mentioned was SWAT, and what is that called again? What is that? I
Yes.
missed that. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's the Southwest Area Transportation Committee. It's Southwest Area Transportation Committee. It's actually one of this agency, one of the Transportation Authority. It's one of the 4 regional transportation planning committees. You're from the city of El Cerrito,
Right.
So El Cerrito participates in WCTAC, or the West Contra Costa Transportation Advisory Committee. Santa Ramon, we're in the SWAT region, so we participate in SWAT. It's a horrible acronym. I get that, and we, generally have to describe to people that it's a transportation planning committee. It's not the police SWAT.
Thank you.
Other members, questions? So I have a question about your bus routing system. Do you know what percentage of your community uses the buses to get to BART?
Very good question. County Connection has just recently adopted a complete service restructure, so they're completely restructuring their service, and there is a route that goes to a part of the city, specifically the southern part of the city, that they are discontinuing that route because we've had very low ridership. I think the average daily boarding on that bus has been 4 riders per day, but they're reallocating that service to the Doherty Valley area of San Ramon because we have a high number of residents from that area that are riding public transit. I don't have a percentage. I can certainly get that information for you from County Connection if you'd like as a follow-up. Okay.
I also have a question about the bicycle routes. I'm curious as to how long is that route? Or is that on the city streets? Does that go on the walking trails?
Is there a specific bike route you're referring to,
Well,
or?
I'm just thinking as far as pedestrian bicycling to mitigate traffic, so I'm just trying to get a sense of what that might look like. And I haven't been in San Ramon for a while, so my apologies.
So we have a bike master plan, and in that plan, there's actually a map of all of the different classifications of the bike network throughout the city. So we have bike lanes, oh, you pulled it up. Very good. Okay. And so it's a very comprehensive bike network, and, there's still work to be done to complete that network throughout the city. But our strategy within the city, particularly within our planning division, is to make sure every new development, there's access to bicycle lanes, a bicycle path, and that those bike lanes get you to and from retail centers or employment centers. A lot of the work that we're doing today is all centered around our new city center and the Bishop Ranch Business Park, and then to and from the Iron Horse Trail.
Yeah, because I think in terms of pedestrian and bicyclists, that's another opportunity to alleviate traffic. And if you can walk there, as many of our 20, 30, 40-year-olds want to do, this is great. Okay, good, thanks. Thank you, I appreciate that. And then one other question. The city of Lafayette has constructed a roundabout off one of our main roads, and now the town of Moraga is looking into roundabouts. I'm wondering if San Ramon is looking into that.
The Doherty Valley developers, there are a number of roundabouts in the Doherty Valley area, and so they're there. They've been developed as part of the Doherty Valley development, and they seem to work. I mean, we don't get any negative feedback. I think the only negative issue that we've run into with roundabouts is that residents will park along the outer part of the roundabout, because I guess it makes sense to them to do that. We don't get it, and so you should not be parking there. And so as a result, we are installing no parking signs. But they are a very good diversion, or they are a good tool to use to speed, to slow down the speed of vehicles. And so we have found where we have roundabouts, particularly in the Doherty Valley area, that while people are not always familiar with them, they do slow vehicles down. So in addition to installing speed humps, which is what we traditionally have done at the city, the newer parts of the city, we have found that the roundabouts have slowed speeds, or we see slower speeds along those streets. We just have that parking issue to deal with.
Thank you. Other comments?
Can you speak to the autonomous bus that was at Bishop Ranch?
Yes, I can. It's a big project. So the Transportation Authority has been taking the lead on, rolling out autonomous shuttles, and Bishop Ranch is one of the agencies that is doing a demonstration project. And so there are 2 autonomous shuttles for the Bishop Ranch Business Park, and they've been testing them on private property. We recently rolled those vehicles out, and so we're testing them on public roadways. We've had a couple of glitches with the vehicle, but in fact, we just met today with the Transportation Authority's consultant, and we're looking at doing another testing date on a public roadway along Camino Ramon in the next 2 months. And so ultimately what the goal is with the autonomous shuttles, particularly in San Ramon and our city center in Bishop Ranch, is to run the autonomous shuttles as first and last mile from our transit center. We're not along a BART line, and so our San Ramon Transit Center is really the hub of where our buses meet, and you can get connecting buses, carpool or vanpool, at that location as well. So the autonomous shuttles will provide that first and last mile from our transit center to the Bishop Ranch Business Park and then to our city center site. And I know Randy Iwasaki, the director here at the authority, is a huge advocate for autonomous shuttles, and he's been very successful to get funding at the federal level for the program, and then obviously bring in the Go Momentum project to Concord. And so Bishop Ranch and the city are reaping those benefits, if you will, and we are a test site to test those autonomous vehicles. So, they're not on the road now in autonomous mode. There's still there's a driver in the vehicle even during the testing. But some of the testing that we've done recently, we have had the vehicles in autonomous mode, and we're dealing with just a few little glitches. But, hopefully in the next few years, you'll start to see, in this county at least, autonomous vehicles running without a driver, or not running, but along roadways.
I have a question related to that, because this is going to be a big legislative issue down the road. For attendance in pilotless vehicles. Are you looking into having attendance on the vehicles for assistance or to react to any incidences or anything like that?
Well, now with the testing, there is an attendant
Right.
in the vehicles. And in terms of the future, it's a good question. At this point, I don't know what will happen with that. Ultimately, that is what the autonomous shuttles, at least the shuttles, should be, that they should be fully autonomous, that they run on a defined route without a driver. But at least from our perspective and the testing that we're doing, we're not there yet. But at some point, that is the vision of the autonomous vehicles. And, they're not just testing here in the Bay Area. There are other test sites throughout the U.S. and then in Europe as well. But we are grateful and thankful to be part of the testing here in Contra Costa County.
Other comments?
Just one quick one. It looks like San Ramon is having the same challenge as every other community in Contra Costa County in terms of trying to fulfill the very low and low income housing requirements. Looks like you're doing very well and above moderate, which I understand and appreciate. Do you see any change in that? Any opportunities to enhance the low or very low income housing situation?
So because he's here this evening, I'm going to defer the housing question to our planner. So I'll turn that over to Ryan.
Good evening. Staff, we're currently working with our Planning Commission on a draft inclusionary housing ordinance for review. We're expecting it to go to the City Council in the next few months. So there'll be some requirements for low and very low affordable housing and in lieu fees. We're also looking at a commercial linkage fee consideration with that ordinance. In our last 2 years here, there are a number of projects that are not reflected. They've been entitled, but not, no building permits have been issued. So there are some other future affordable housing units that are not reflected in here, but will be coming online in the near future too. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got a dovetail on that. So I'm involved with trying to find housing for low-income veterans and other folks who can't afford more than $1,600 a month for a two-bedroom place that they must have. They're getting priced out to the point where they can't afford to leave the state, but they can't afford the rent increase either. Is the city of San Ramon doing anything to mitigate that or meet the needs of some of our fixed and low-income residents?
Yeah, we're starting to have some discussions, I think, with our Housing Advisory Committee and Planning Commission on maybe newer, innovative ways to address some of those concerns. Community
Yeah,
rent
it's hard
land
because
trust.
I just had a request that the rent that this person could afford was only $1,600 a month, and even out in Oakley,
Yeah.
$2,000 a month is low rent. And I can tell you, my mortgage is way less than that, and it's upside down. So we have people working with minimum wage and low-income jobs that can't. I couldn't afford $2,000 a month. It's insane.
Yes, yeah, is definitely a need in our community in San Ramon to, we are, yeah, like I was saying, looking at maybe some new strategies like community land trust or some other alternatives that we can address the affordable housing in San Ramon, but also, in the Bay Area too.
How many people would you say leave San Ramon every morning to go to work, and how far do they travel?
I haven't seen.
We did a employer transportation survey about 4 years ago. And so this doesn't directly answer your question, but we know that we have, for commuters coming into the city, we have a drive-alone rate of about 71%. So, which is fairly good for a suburban community. But we also know that, with a large regional employment center, there are hundreds of city residents who actually work within the Bishop Ranch Business Park or other businesses within the city. So, I don't have the exact number, but there's a high number of our residents who actually work within the Bishop Ranch Business Park area. But we do know that there are a lot of residents in the city who commute to the South Bay. And so we do get requests from residents to help, with the regional projects along the I-580 or 680 corridor to get people quicker and faster to and from Silicon Valley or jobs in the South Bay. So I don't have an exact number for you, but it's probably higher than most suburban cities just because of the fact that we have a regional employment center within our jurisdiction.
So, go ahead, Bruce.
I'm going to ask a question that really jumped at me when I went through this material, and I still can't find it. But there was, on the low and moderate income families, list a range of address on a particular street. Can you go into some description for that for me? Can you tell me what that is?
That was the housing report?
Yeah, I read it this morning, and there was a street, and it gave a range of addresses for the low and moderate income residents permits, and it just jumped at me, I apologize for being new here, but one of the things I never really seen addressed are the social and economic demographics on the housing issue, and maybe I'm going way too far over my head, but that range of address sort of jumped at me.
Yeah, there was a development that was completed recently, the Deer Creek North Senior Apartments in Doherty Valley on Bollinger Canyon Road. It had a range of addresses. That might be what you're referring to. Yeah. That was the majority of the affordable units that were reported. Yeah, yes, yeah. Bollinger is one of the largest streets in the city, and this happens to be on the east, kind of southeast side of the city. Yeah. It's new development. It's part of Doherty Valley, which is a large development approved by the county originally, but as they get built, it gets annexed into the city. And so this is one of the more recent portions of that. Yeah.
Bruce, let me just mention to you, if you looked at Orinda, for example, there would only be 2 addresses that have very low-income housing. Those are both senior, low-income Section 8 senior housing development. So, they often do tend to be concentrated in either, one building or in a limited number of addresses. Just.
So, but this is new development. I get the impression that, what they're proposing is new development.
Okay.
New permits.
This is new development. Yeah.
I'm new, okay, and I apologize for that just jumped at me.
Yeah.
Purpose of us discussing this is so that we can interface with the representatives, and they can either clarify, or at least, as Lisa had said, come back with information later. So, no, you're perfectly in line. Other comments? Okay, we've lost Mike because he has another meeting to attend. All right, so I just wanted to follow up on something that Mike had mentioned. With the veterans, there is a high need for them who are coming home. That $1,600 is what the Veterans Administration provides for housing. So for a lot of the veterans, that's it. They don't have anything else. And there are certain organizations in the area. One is in Martinez, Veteran Services. If you want to speak with them to find out how to address the issue of veterans and homeless veterans. And then there's another organization in Concord, and it's the Vet Center. So the Vet Center is the director is Jeff Jewell, and in Martinez, that executive director is Nathan Johnson. They would love to speak with you. It's sad to go in there and see these kids who have given up their life to protect us, and now they don't have a place to live. So thank you for doing that. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so Lisa, in your description, you had mentioned that there is a citizen advisory committee within San Ramon. We don't have a San Ramon representative here, Lisa.
I know, you are correct. And I think Jennifer Brown was our last representative, and I believe she resigned last year.
Yeah.
So we are actively recruiting for a member. We've reached out to our Transportation Advisory Committee, and we have just recently posted the application on our website. And so, yes, we hope to get somebody within the next month or so. We'll bring it to our city council, get them to approve it, and then hopefully get somebody here soon.
So I will take the initiative and say that I know that Matt would be very, very amenable to meeting with whoever the representative would be, and so would I. And just to let them know we're really a nice group of people. And we have fun. We enjoy ourselves. We're educated. So we would love to have a representative from San Ramon. Absolutely. It certainly helps us when we move forward to the next cycle to ensure that particular representative advises your group to get your checklist in so that you can get your money.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that offer. I'll
Yeah.
definitely let them know to contact you, and you can get them up to speed on where this committee is
Yeah,
at.
they can contact Matt, and he will
Great.
contact me.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not looking at Matt because I just volunteered him, so you see I'm looking over there. Okay, other comments, questions? So we don't have a quorum, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just take a vote of approval and bring it forward to the Board of Supervisors and let them know what the vote is, and let them know that we voted without a quorum, and we can do that. So we're not going to turn around and say, can you come back next month? We're not going to do that. So with that in mind, I'd like I usually will ask for the representative of San Ramon to start out with a vote. We don't have a representative, so the one on the other side of the mountain would be Moraga, and I would ask Larry if you would want to start on the vote. Would you approve or disapprove?
Approve.
Okay, thank you. Bruce? Okay, Bruce?
I'd like to second that.
Okay. Are you approving that? We can't take a motion because we don't have a quorum. You approve? Okay. And Kenneth?
Approve.
Okay. Mark? Larry? Okay, and I approve also. So that's a majority of us here. And thank you so very much. This was a lot of information. You certainly are busy. I'll get myself over I go to Bishop Ranch, but that's not San Ramon in my mind. And I will get over there again because it's a very sweet little town. It's not so little, but it's not so little. It's sweet, and I think that you're doing a great job in building and keeping a very community-looking environment. So I'm pleased. Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you.
Yes, Mark.
Also want to thank you for bringing multiple representatives from the city, because in the past, it's been a case where one representative has been here and was an expert in one area, perhaps say transportation, but didn't really have the information about housing or about jobs and employment. So thank you very much for being thoughtful and having all the right people here. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Plus, Ryan said he wasn't going to come here alone anyway, so. Okay, thanks so much. Good night. Next on our agenda is, the update on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission Association of Bay Area Governments on the CASA initiative. This is going to be exciting. Matt?
Thank you, Chair Vega. As you mentioned, I'm going to be presenting the CASA initiative. MTC staff couldn't make it today, so I am filling in their place. I'm just going to present it as information, kind of as as a neutral party. Oh no, our laptop is being finicky. Is there something on this screen here? Can you hit show video? Oh, we're getting something now. Looks like I need to log back in, which I can do. Okay, I should probably enter this computer's password and not my own computer's password. Let's see. Yeah, we're in business. Okay, so CASA. CASA is a kind of a public-private partnership that was established about 18 months ago and is being kind of overseen by MTC and ABAG, although they will tell you it is this public-private partnership that is not theirs. They just kind of oversee it for the time being. At least in its development. CASA refers to home. It does mean home in Spanish, but it's not an acronym. Basically, it stands for, or what it means is the Committee to House the Bay Area. So it's focusing on the housing issue that has developed over the last several years and what can be done about it, both from a public and kind of a business perspective. So I'm going to walk you through the presentation. Skip that one. Basically, here's one of the main problems. Housing costs are rising by 12 percentage points. Transportation costs rising by 1 percentage point. That's between 2005 and 2040. Back in 2005, it was 54% of the average household income. By 2040, it will be 67% housing and transportation. So that's a major chunk of people's take-home pay that could certainly be spent elsewhere. Here's what I see as the crux of the problem. Over the last several years, the Bay Area has grown by leaps and bounds in terms of job production, adding 600,000 jobs or more since 2010. In that amount of time, only 60,000 homes were constructed. That means those people are either coming from outside the Bay Area every day, which is, a minimum of 60 miles each direction if you're coming from, say, Yolo or Sacramento County or San Joaquin County or Santa Cruz County, San Benito County. So it's really adding to problems on the roads. It's taking away from people's take-home pay, and it's having an effect on people's families. This is a look at county by county who's been producing jobs and who's been producing housing. Jobs are in the blue, housing in the orange. Everybody's an offender here, as you can tell. Contra Costa is kind of one of the better housing producers in terms of the ratio to jobs, 5-1. But you've got folks like San Francisco and San Mateo who are really just producing jobs and not producing their share of housing. The question that came up earlier, affordable housing, you can see that the growth in low-income housing is very low. That's in the orange. And the regional housing need, which is the goal for each city, what they're supposed to produce, is in the blue. And then job growth is over there on the right in the gray. So there's a big disparity there in what should be produced and what is being produced. Here's a map showing the areas most affected by the high housing cost. Basically, the colors are showing where displacement and gentrification are taking place. They've broken it up by lower income housing and higher income housing. The lower income housing is in the purpley colors, and the higher income housing is in the orangey colors. But basically, it's showing you that this type of displacement is going on both in low and higher income housing all over the Bay Area. And it's all the way out. You can see that triangle near Brentwood. That's East Brentwood, all the way to the tip of Richmond, at least in our county, and everywhere in between. So the structure of CASA is that the ABAG and MTC boards kind of oversee it. There's 3 co-chairs. They are represent mostly the private side of things. Then there's a steering committee and a technical advisory committee. The compact framework is the 3 Ps, and the compact is basically what they were tasked with developing, and I'll get into the compact in just a minute. So the 3 Ps are to produce more housing units, to preserve the existing affordable units, and affordable, that includes medium, kind of all ranges where people already are, and to protect those folks that are already in homes from losing their homes. So this is kind of the process that CASA went through. They did some online surveys. They established these advisory groups, and then they've been meeting with the ABAG and MTC meeting structure over the last several months. These are the survey questions. I'm going to skip over those. And then here is the elements of the compact, which I'll get into in just a second, and which P affects which. And here is kind of what they're up against in terms of housing protection, production, and preservation. The costs and subsidies that are required to produce new housing. And you can see for production, the average development cost per unit is around $600,000. And there's several subsidies currently in place, and they don't meet the need currently. this is just looking at the transportation side of things. Self-help funding for transportation. Contra Costa is a self-help county because we have a sales tax. So this is kind of looking at the contribution from the self-help counties. I'll get into this stuff in just a minute when I discuss the actual compact. But basically, they're going to be looking at new sources of funding. The cities aren't real happy about that because a lot of those new sources are basically taxing existing jurisdictions, homeowners, different. There's a lot of different proposals, but it's basically it's hitting at the local level. I'm going to skip through here. This is more of the structure, and here's the timeline. Basically, they reserved 2018 for developing the CASA Compact. A lot of the compact requirements involve changes in legislation, so they're looking at the next few years for that. They've factored in the 2020 election, the presidential election, and then the 2022 gubernatorial election. And in between there, the state will be adopting a new regional housing needs assessment, as well as the Bay Area will be adopting the new Plan Bay Area Regional Transportation Plan. So there's kind of a lot going on. So that was the development of CASA. Now we actually have a compact that was approved last month. ABAG and MTC have said that they didn't adopt it, that it's adopted by the CASA committee, and will kind of go from here to implementation, being run by this CASA committee. So CASA has 10 compacts. Yes, 10 compacts. The first is a just cause eviction policy, which will attempt to ensure that Bay Area tenants are protected from arbitrary evictions, and that landlords have to cite just causes for termination of any tenancy. Element number 2 is an emergency rent cap, which will basically, I'm going to go back to the page that listed all these so you can see what I'm talking about. Emergency rent cap, which would establish a Bay Area-wide rent cap that limits annual increases in rent to a reasonable amount. The details of these are still being worked out. Compact element number 3 is an emergency rent assistance and access to legal counsel, would give folks, especially low-income folks who are subject to eviction, would give them assistance, especially on the legal side. Compact element number 4 would remove regulatory barriers to accessory dwelling units. Chadwick, our ADU guy, isn't here today, but I'm sure he'd be happy to hear about that. Basically would take existing laws that exist in a lot of cities around the Bay Area and spread those around, and would remove regulatory barriers for approval of ADUs. Compact element number 5 is minimum zoning near transit. Basically, it would allow upzoning in transit-rich neighborhoods, such as the one we're in now, but would also allow upzoning in other neighborhoods around the Bay, but would allow sensitive communities, basically communities of concern, to defer rezoning until they develop context-sensitive plans for their areas, and would also require inclusion of these affordable units that we were discussing earlier for projects with 20 units or more. Element number 6 is good government reforms to housing approval process, would basically provide standards for entitlement and permitting of residential projects, would require transparency and consistency in how impact fees are set and enforced. Element number 7 is expedited approvals and financial incentives to ensure timely approval of housing projects that are compliant with the city zoning. Compact element number 8 would be to unlock public land for affordable housing. It would basically be looking at some of these cities and agencies that own excess land and would attempt to use that land for creation of affordable housing. Element number 9 is funding and financing of the CASA Compact. Basically, the goal would be to raise $1.5 billion annually from a broad range of sources. That includes property owners, developers, employers, local governments, and taxpayers to fund implementation of the CASA Compact. That's probably the most controversial element here that we've gone through because it does affect individuals and the cities to a high degree. And the final element is regional housing enterprise. That would be to establish a regional leadership entity to implement the CASA Compact or another regional agency for the Bay Area. So they've developed 4 calls to action to implement. One is called Redevelopment 2.0. It would basically attempt to pass legislation that would reestablish redevelopment agencies in California. We had them before. They did do a lot of housing construction, including, or housing funding, including affordable housing. So getting those back would be one way to attempt to implement the compact. The second call for action is to lower the voter threshold for housing funding measures. So when there are measures on local ballots, it requires a 2/3 vote. This would attempt to lower that threshold to 55%. Call for action 3 is Proposition 13 fiscal reforms. Basically, it would attempt to make housing more lucrative or less unlucrative for local jurisdictions and provide jurisdictions that are building more housing with a higher share of property tax revenue. The last one is on homelessness, and this funding package, it basically requires CASA's funding package to include resources that help produce housing for formerly homeless people and prevent homelessness when possible. So it's an awful lot. It's very controversial. The authority has not taken a stance on it. We've kind of deferred that to our local jurisdictions. The county did write a very good, lengthy letter to the regional agencies, kind of pushing back on some of these items. I think in your local jurisdictions, you probably will see some discussion about CASA and whether they agree with the compact as it's been developed. And as I mentioned, a lot of this requires change in state legislation. So you'll see a lot of work up in Sacramento to get some of these passed, and whether the new administration up there will be more friendly to some of these, it's still yet to see. So over the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot of discussion about this, just because it is so controversial and so such a paradigm shift. So that completes my presentation on that. I don't know that I can answer a lot of your questions, but you can attempt, and I will either answer them here or attempt to follow up with some answers.
Julie?
Mark.
We're talking about, regional agencies. Just a quick question, Matt, and maybe this is more opinion than anything else. I mean, over the past few years, it kind of seems like ABAG has been subsumed into the MTC. Does ABAG really still exist as a separate agency, or kind of as a name only?
That's a good question. We ask ourselves that all the time. They actually do. They do have a separate board today. We thought things would be combined earlier. I'm not really sure where ABAG will be down the road, but for now, they do have separate boards.
Other questions or comments?
It mentioned that of the public land that would be available for housing, and I was surprised that BART had something like 200 and close to 250 acres excess land. Any hint as to where that's at?
So I don't know all the locations. What comes to mind is that back when BART, probably 10 to 20 years ago, when BART was before some of the extensions had been built, they had purchased land where there might be a future station. They purchased land to use for park and rides, so they could bus folks from those locations to BART stations. So they may have some of those lands still in their possession. There also could be lands around existing stations where they bought more land than was necessary, or that they plan on developing. So I haven't seen those maps, though. Perhaps when we have BART in for a future presentation, we can ask them about that.
Madam Chair, if I'm not mistaken, our governor discussed briefly redevelopment money in the old traditional sense was not part of his move forward, at least in the new administration. Is that right? You get this right away. What do you think?
Well, I actually didn't hear that, but I didn't watch his whole entire speech. It's probably going to be up to legislature to push him on that if that's the path they want to go down. So I can see, whether it's a full redevelopment the way it used to exist, or kind of some junior version of that focuses on affordable housing or something like that. It could be something like that he would be more amenable to. But
do you think that the list of items, some will be picked as possible items that could make it, others would be put in the background for a while, because some of these would create havoc in some of the cities and the county?
Yeah, I think there's probably some low-hanging fruit there. I won't opine as to which ones, but there are some that are definitely easier than others and less controversial. So I think you'll see a few move forward, especially the ones that don't require changes to legislation. I don't want to try and prognosticate, but I think some will move forward, some will just probably be so controversial we'll be talking about them several years from now.
Other comments or questions? So, Matt, just for clarity, when element number 4, are you looking at in-law units when you look at that? So some of the barriers to that is that, I think further down, I made a notation for element 7, getting permits, it takes a long time, to the point that not so much for in-law units, but for a building, some contractors say, forget it, I'm out of here. And so we miss an opportunity, more specifically for affordable housing.
Yeah, and this one would focus on in-law units, or it even mentions tiny homes, small homes, and junior ADUs, which are kind of a hybrid. They attach onto the home. They're not a separate structure. I think this would attempt to kind of create a template process that all cities could adopt, because right now, if cities have an ADU ordinance, it's different in each city. And so I think it would be focusing on streamlining the process and maybe lowering the fees.
Yeah, I think that all of a sudden we'll see a lot more housing available, if we're a lot more open and friendly to that type of arrangement. Also, element number 5, are you speaking about transit villages?
Yeah, basically in a neighborhood like this, it would allow, within a certain distance to upzone what is allowed within a certain radius of the transit stations. And right now they're saying, I believe, mid-rise housing, about 55 feet would be the recommended height in
The
transit.
height?
In transit locations, yeah.
I'm just wondering if eventually we're going to look similar to Singapore, where the apartments are even higher than some of the corporate buildings. I'm not talking, I'm just saying. It's pretty scary. Okay, thanks. Other comments, questions? I do have a question also, sorry, one more. You mentioned that you would you skipped over the survey questions. I'm just curious, one or two, what were those sample survey questions?
On my screen, and if you want to just take a look. Yeah. So.
Thank you. Questions, comments? No? Matt, thank you so much. A lot of work went into this. Really appreciate it. Next on the agenda, we have a review of Measure J and return to source expenditures.
Yeah, so every time you guys receive a checklist, if you the last couple of pages generally of a checklist are the local streets and roads maintenance, or LSM, audit reporting forms. So there's the first page is what we call a summary form, where people put jurisdictions place what they received in terms of their 18% return to source funding that a successful checklist gets them. Hope everybody knows that. Once their checklist is approved, they get a check for their annual 18% return to source from Measure J. What we ask them to do, is item 12 on the checklist, is to report what they received from us and to report how they expended it. As I mentioned, the front sheet is a summary form which has the 5 categories and 6 categories, and how they expended that money. And then the second page is what we call our detailed audit reporting form, where for any expenditure over $10,000 of Measure J money, that they give us some detail on how that project, that money was expended. Some examples are, if pothole filling, say they used their return to source money to fill potholes. How many potholes did they fill? Some cities have a pothole program. And so we want to know, what did you spend it on? How many potholes did we get? Street paving, how many square feet did you pave? Bike lanes, how many feet or miles of bike lanes did you put in? Those types of things. So when we're asked, what did Measure J do? We can say, hey, this is what it did. So this is the first time we've put together this report. This was only a requirement. The detail auditing, it was only a requirement in the last 2 checklists. So we've finally got 2 fiscal years of reports in, and so I've tried to compile those and put them together in a format that's somewhat easy to understand. We gave them the city's examples of how to report, but each city kind of collects different data. Some collect data in square feet, square yards, tonnage of asphalt, things like that. And so what I tried to do is take what they gave us and kind of Sometimes I had to convert units, but basically get it into a reportable format. So if you turn to the next page of your handout, you'll see the fiscal year 14-15 summary of expenditures, and the final page is fiscal year 15-16. And just, sorry, back to the first page, you'll see that in 14-15, Measure J, for the 18% portion of Measure J brought in $16.5 million. That fiscal year, $18.2 million was expended in the local jurisdictions. And the reason that more was expended is that cities can hold on to that money. They don't have to spend it that fiscal year. So we asked them what they received, what they spent, and how much they have in the bank. So we can see when cities are holding on to it. And sometimes they're holding on for a good reason, for a major project or something that they've targeted down the road. Then in 15-16, Measure J brought in $14.3 million, and just about $13 million was expended by the local jurisdictions. So I'll just run through some of these, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So for fiscal year 14-15, I'll just kind of highlight some things. ADA curb ramps, most of our sidewalks were built without nice curb cuts at the corners. So a lot, especially our older cities. So we've had, just in that fiscal year, 290 curb ramps were installed around the county. And I'll say 290, that was just the amount that Measure J 18% funded. There could have been 2,000, and they applied Measure J funds to 290 of them. But still, that's a lot of curb cuts. You see the item base repair. That's basically fixing the base of our roadways. That's 18 football fields worth of base repair. I computed that myself. You'll see bridge maintenance designs. Some of our cities have a lot of bridges. They need to put together maintenance plans. So Measure J funded 31 bridge designs, maintenance designs. 21,000 linear feet of bike lanes were installed. Almost 11,000 linear feet of cracks were sealed on our streets. That's 2 miles of cracks that Measure J funded. Jump down to those 3 pavement items: pavement overlay, pavement patching, pavement surface treatments. That's 110 football fields worth of pavement treatments on your local streets. That's pretty significant. 877 potholes were filled. 38,000 linear feet of sidewalks were installed. A lot of cities who were built, maybe when sidewalks weren't required or were, annexed at a later date and were into cities that required sidewalks, they're now doing that and using Measure J funds. Slurry seals, that's 120 football fields worth of slurry seal. That's a seal on top of your city streets. Let's see, 1,400 street lights were installed around the county. That's important stuff. And 5 new traffic signals. Those are the local streets and roads expenditures for that category. The growth management program expenditures, 7 cities paid their regional transportation planning committee, the SWATs, the WIC tax. They paid their membership with that. Let's see, over in West County, 473 paratransit riders were services for 473 riders were funded. And then in our trails category, about 1.5 miles of trail paving and construction was completed using Measure J funds. I'll jump over to fiscal year 15-16. We had another 64 curb ramps, another 2 miles of bike lane installation, where it says, let's see, 2 lane miles of complete streets. There were also complete streets plans that were put together using this funding, but it's not shown here. 5 miles of cracks sealed on our streets. 4 crosswalks with flashing beacons for pedestrian and bike safety. 1 sinkhole was repaired. I believe that was I think that was the Orinda one, based on the fiscal year, not the Moraga one. Or actually, I think it was the Lafayette one. Something about La Morinda and your sinkholes. Yeah, that was the one over on Mountain View Drive, I believe it was. Is that the name of the street? Just south of Mount Diablo.
It's right off one of our city council members' homes. It got repaired.
Quick, like I'm sure. About 2 miles of sidewalks were installed, 750 potholes, about 140 football fields worth of pavement overlay, seals, and surface treatments. Let's see, 60 traffic signals were interconnected. That's basically making traffic signals talk to each other. So like on Ignacio Valley Road, all the signals are synchronization. They're all talking to each other. Let's see, another 7 RTPC dues were paid using using the money. 2 general plan elements in 2 different cities were updated using that money. Another paratransit service was provided for 500 riders, again in West County. And this time we had about 9 miles of trails either constructed or repaved around the county, and 1 parking plan was developed using the funds. So as you can see, it's a wide variety of expenditures, but it's all money that I think the residents of these cities are using. As I mentioned, it's reported city by city, but for this we tried to combine it all to get a look at the county-wide impact. So I'm sure there's better ways of presenting this information. You're the first group I've presented this to, so just wanted to show this to you, see if you had any comments, if you like the format. We will certainly continue doing this for each fiscal year. We'll probably come back each fiscal year and present once we get caught up. I think our board sees this as a way of, if we go out for another measure, really being able to educate the voting public on what Measure J has done, at their front door, not just the Caldecott tunnels or the E-BARTs. This is stuff that's happening locally. So I can take any questions or comments you guys might have.
I have a couple of, yeah, absolutely. I think that we need to know what's in it for me and where did this go in my neck of the woods, in my backyard. I don't want to, it's just a suggestion. I like the way it looks. What I'd like to see is, curb ramps. What cities were those? Just down the road here, so that here I am in Lafayette, and I go, oh yeah, that's right. That was that pothole that got repaired, and that was through Measure J. That's cool. Oh right, they did connect that bike lane. Oh yeah, that's the roundabout. So that, I think, helps with I know in Lafayette, that our group, and I would suspect everywhere else, it'd say, oh yeah, Measure J, yeah, that, whatever. Quick question, 2 questions actually. When you go out to bid, is this low bid?
Well, it's done city by city. Mm-hmm. So it depends on the city.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And these are in response to what the city planning commission sees is necessary for the city. Is it also in response to what the city citizens would come forward in a city council meeting and say, are you guys looking at blah, 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 and those trees look as if they're going to fall any minute now? So is it in response to both?
I would say both, yeah. I mean, a lot of the projects come from the city's CIP, the capital improvement plan that Lisa mentioned earlier. They could be projects. They don't have to be Measure J projects that are on the measure. They can be any local project that the city wants to fund. So however they get their projects, whether it's from individuals or city generated.
Comments?
Question or clarification? So obviously, these are just funded by Measure J. The cities might fund other things with other funds. Is there a way to, when we're trying to sell the concept of Measure J, is, okay, this is the total amount of sidewalk in the entire whatever, and this is the extra that Measure J delivered?
Yeah, that's something I can attempt to do, because generally what they do is they'll say, here's the project we did, and 45% of it was funded by Measure J, and I kind of do the math. But yeah, so we have those numbers. Maybe I can create a separate column.
Other comments, questions? No? Okay. Thanks, Matt. This was very educational. I really appreciate your work here. You've just been busy, busy, busy. Okay, next on the agenda is our committee reports. If any of our board members attended any of the committee members, and this is where I miss Stephen terribly. All right, so I will attempt to attend the full authority board. I will not be able to attend next month, February 20th. If anybody is available and can, you're welcome to do that. Please let Matt know that you will. I will attend the March 20th full board meeting, so I'll come back and give you a report on that for our March 27th meeting. So CAC members, comments, staff comments?
I have one comment. I have two. One, first I'd like to introduce our newest staff member here at CCTA. You might all remember, or you may not have met Brad, but Brad Beck was our senior planner for 20 some odd years, and he retired as of the end of last year. Tonight we have our new planner, James Hinkamp. Some of you might know him from the city of Lafayette, where we stole him from. So Lafayette's loss is our gain. And as I mentioned to him earlier, he'll probably be presenting to you before too long on some of the items he's working on. So you'll see him around.
Welcome, City of Lafayette. I like it.
And my second item is that, some of you who are here tonight attended our Gomentum Station tour last month. For those who are interested in, who weren't able to make it, and even if you were able to make it and you want a second go around, we're not going to say no. We have a date that just opened up next Wednesday, a week from today at 1 p.m. 1:30. Probably the tour will start. We'll leave the parking lot at 1:30. Okay, so just for our information, is there anybody here tonight who thinks they might be interested in attending that next Wednesday? Okay, we've at least got some interest. I think there's probably some members who aren't here tonight who will be interested. So Fifi will reach out to the group and with some information, and we'll go from there.
So that's
Oh, yeah,
next,
the waivers that need to be signed
you'll have them there.
they need to be signed beforehand.
Oh, before
So
we
Fifi
get
will
there.
send them out. Yeah,
Okay, so that's next Wednesday, January 30th
it is.
at 1:30.
And we meet at the Concord City Hall parking lot.
I'll have to rearrange a schedule, see if I can do that. I've got a meeting at Port Chicago at 3:30.
You're right in the neighborhood.
Yeah, well, they start right on time.
But we will be done before, it took an hour. The tour itself was an hour last time.
Oh, so it will be 1:30 to 2:30? Okay,
I'd give yourself till 3, but yeah.
okay, so count me in.
Quick question, is the Concord City Hall?
I think it's walkable from BART. It's probably a half mile from BART. Bruce, if you need to, check with me and we'll be leaving from here. If you want to take BART to here, we could take you.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, just,
'Cause I don't know that, nothing here, so.
I got you. Us West County folk, it's a whole new world out here. Yeah.
That being the case, if I wanted to come here also, we should be here by 1?
We'll give you a time.
We'll confirm everything and send an email out to the committee.
That's great, thank you. Okay, any other comments? So just a reminder, if you haven't done this already, please sign in so that you can receive your per diem. And also, I'm singing to the choir. However, just down the road, if you're not going to be able to attend, what we're doing now is if you don't respond to our email asking if you can be at the meeting, we will be sending you an email asking you, are you coming or if you're not. So we're not signaling you out. We just want to make sure that we've got a quorum and we make sure who's coming. Also, please look at your dates of service to the board, and if it's coming up, personally, I would love it if you re-upped, as they say in the military. So, because, you're just a really good group of people, and I think that you provide a phenomenal resource to the county. So please do that. If there's nothing else, then our next meeting is February 27th, and I look forward to seeing everybody then. And this meeting is adjourned.